what's most important to you, money, like if that's the only thing you really care about, then you don't need to be on team. If you want to leverage and be able to do more time, be able to focus on the things you enjoy doing that, then it's a no-brainer, right? And it's like, and not to say, I know a lot of people that are on teams that make more money than they ever would, but if your focus is not about getting help and doing it, all you are looking at is that next check, you're never going to appreciate what you get.
What are some common pitfalls agents should avoid?
Common pitfalls, I would say paying attention to social media.
Happy to have you here.
Thanks, Bob.
Got a lot to talk about.
Okay.
I let in with the conversation I had yesterday, and I know you saw the Zoom I put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get it from the email or from the Facebook post?
I think
You did the email.
I clicked through the email, yeah.
Yeah. But I asked the guy yesterday what he thought about it, and his perspective was that all he focuses on is today, and he feels like you can affect more in your past, and he meant by learning from it and changing the way you act in the day-to-day based on what you've done in the past. But it was just really interesting that his perspective was just so, he's like, smarter people than me will figure it out, and I'm just gonna win today. And I was like, that's so refreshing. Nick, you got a real estate team.
Yes.
How are things going?
They're not bad.
Yeah?
I mean, they're not 2020, 2022, but, they're going. We're definitely on the track.
Yeah.
So last year we got derailed for a handful of reasons, but I feel like we're back.
Handful of reasons.
A lot of them were me. I got out of a business partnership, and that derailed me for about 3 months.
Yeah.
Of just focus. And as the leader, my focus got off of generating business and adapting to the changing market, and it allowed us to get behind.
Yeah. It definitely changed. I feel like October 22 was the...
See, we didn't see it till January of 23. Like, we crushed the last quarter of 22.
Really?
Yeah. Everyone else was complaining, and we're like, I don't get what you're talking about. Like, we just kept going. Best year we ever had, wasn't even close. And 2023, it was like January was cricket.
Just got focused on the wrong things, but that's kind of like the same, what you're saying is getting focused on the wrong things. You probably led into it. The 3 months is the separation. You probably had some distractions before the separation too. Mm-hmm. Business. Oh yeah. Business relationships are tough especially when you have to end them. Mm-hmm. They never end quick enough. No. They never end quick enough, and yeah, I can relate with that. So this year, what's going good?
I think it's just a mentality thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one of, kind of like you were talking about other stuff, like I can't control interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
I've just quit talking about them.
Yeah.
Like I don't, when people ask me about them, I have no clue. It's like there's a great new tool on Google, and we talk about that kind of stuff, of being able to monitor and see stuff and talk about mortgage news daily. Go on there and check this stuff out, call our lender, talk to people. But it was like, I don't know. I don't keep up with it.
Right.
Like, I don't need to.
Yeah. I feel like that's sort of easing a little bit, October 22 is, I know that's when the interest rates changed, because that's when I had my nervous breakdown. But I feel like since then, and I saw it really in January, is people just, they totally changed their tune. Mm-hmm. People totally changed their tune. I didn't hear the interest rate thing as much, even though the rates really didn't drop that much. In fact, they went up a little bit. I think people have realized, they finally accepted what's going on.
And we just changed the conversation, right? The question isn't, are the rates good enough to buy? The question is, do you need to move?
Right, for sure.
That's all that matters.
Right.
Like, if you need to move, let's figure out how to make that happen.
Right. And all the people that have put that on the sidelines based on the interest rates, I believe that there's like a math conversation that's not happening, because if you offset with the equity that they never thought they would have, previous homeowners. Now, first-time home buyers, that's a little bit different, but.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing happening? Like, do you have any projections of what's going to happen for the rest of the year?
I have no clue. I don't know what's going to happen next week. What are you talking about? So, I'm not a fortune teller. I've just determined to hit a certain number I've put in front of myself, and I've encouraged my team to, have their goals, and let's go after it. And we're going to find it wherever it's at.
Yeah.
Because people are going to move.
They're going to move.
They need help. So
Need help.
I can sit around and sob about the rates or whatever, or I can go try to find those people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, bringing it up to present day, like we were talking before this thing started about the lawsuit. And I just talked to the guy at the bank next door. And it was really interesting because he was asking me. All of a sudden I became an expert just because I posted on my Facebook page that I was going to hold a Zoom.
Yeah.
But I said I might hold a Zoom. I didn't even say I was going to. Now people are asking me what my opinion is. And my new opinion is they're not going to let the housing market crash. They're not going to let, and here's the thing, some people might have the capital to pay for a buyer's agent that they value, that puts out value, right? That does something for them that they don't get on Zillow, or they don't get, you got to do something for them. But they're not going to let the people that don't have the money to pay the person go without the person. They're not going to stop them from buying a house. I guarantee that's one fact that won't happen. They're not going to.
I agree. I think there could be an interim season to where that will be true.
Yeah.
Like where things aren't adjusted to where that first-time home buyer who just can't afford them, to maybe or maybe not have to pay extra, like they're going to be the ones that hurt the most.
I was talking to a lender yesterday, and he threw me for a loop because he was on a Zoom with his corporate office or whatever. And I didn't think about this because I was like, oh man, just like seller paid closing costs. I mean, they shouldn't even call them that. They should call them finance closing costs because that's really what they are. The seller's not paying for them. The bottom line is just whatever the seller wants his bottom line to be. Yeah. And I think that's another angle of this whole thing too, is the focus on what the seller nets as opposed to what you got to focus on what they pay, and they need to know what they're paying for. But at the same time, once you negotiate a deal, you say, okay, we're going to raise the price and put this on top so that the seller can finance this, right? Mm-hmm. Or the buyer can finance it, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't even think about the limit of seller concessions being 3% on conventional. That didn't even pass through my head. They can be 6% on FHA, yeah. But then, so that kind of throws a wrench in my optimism, right? Like I didn't even think about that.
But I think that's what gets changed, right? Like there may be a lull to where that's not changed yet,
yeah.
But I think that will eventually get changed if we stay down the path we think we're going.
They'll push this thing out. It's, they say July is the day that it's going to go active, but if they don't have it figured out, because it's not the real estate side of it that's the challenge, it's the financing side. It's not, okay, the buyer's agent doesn't get paid anymore, and we're still going to get by, right? Mm-hmm. But the part about how the lending's going to work was the question.
Because that's, the one, whether it's politicians, corporation, the consumer is the one that people care about, right?
That's right.
And at the end of the day, if you ask the question, are you better off having representation or doing it yourself? Very few people are going to tell you you're not better off, right? Now, there's a value standpoint of how much is that worth paying. That's a different conversation to have. But are you better off being represented by someone that does this every day or doing it yourself every 7 to 8 years?
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think anybody would say, well, you're better off just not having a professional.
Right.
Right? Now, the question is, what's the compensation look like for it and how does it come about?
Yeah.
And right now, none of us know that. And I don't even try to guess.
And it's the other part of it, though, is like in a free market, right? Mm-hmm. Like people pay for what they get, they pay for what they get, or their
benefits.
They're paying for whatever the benefit is of what they get. Mm-hmm. So if the pay is higher than the benefit and it's regulated that way, like it has been in the past, I agree. Like a lot of it I do, but I'm kind of anti-real estate agent to a certain point, I think, we already know that the majority of them don't do it as a first income. Mm-hmm. They do it as a part-time job. And it's a second income or third income in a house, not the first. So a lot of people don't take it seriously. And I feel like in some cases that's the part that I'm positive or hoping that filters out. The part where people that don't take it seriously don't do it. But we can only control what we control. People are still going to move.
That conversation today.
People are still going to move.
Yep.
They're still going to move. So
you can call it commission. You can call it a consulting fee, whatever I want to call it moving forward in the future.
Yeah.
There will be a way for me to be compensated for helping people.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day too. It's like wholesalers, right? They're a perfect example of if somebody needs something or somebody has a property they need to sell.
Have a need.
They have a need. And then they have investors looking to pay. Like nobody says anything about how much they make in between, right? And it's all negotiated on top of what the seller says they need to take for the house.
It's almost like a net listing. Almost, isn't it?
Right. Like I need this much. You can get me this much. You can make whatever you want. And
Which is illegal as a real estate agent.
is it?
A net listing is illegal.
Oh, a
in the
net
state of
listing,
Kentucky,
right. Is a wholesale listing. Is selling a contract listing.
I don't know.
It-
Now that's are you representing the seller, right? And that's what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to.
Is if you have a wholesale, and these are way above my pay grade, right?
Yeah.
But it was like if you're just putting a contract and then selling your contract, there's probably nothing there. Now, if you've alluded to the seller that you're trying to help
Representing
them
them.
or representing them, that's a net listing, right? That's
Yeah.
a totally different thing.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I don't know those conversations people are having with the sellers. I'm not part of them, right?
I've been a part of a couple of them.
Well,
In the sense that, like, what these wholesalers are doing from across the country. I don't know if you talked about this, but it's happened twice. The second one, I told the guy to jump in a lake. Like, he's like, "Oh, you don't want to take this list?" I'm like, "No." The first one, I actually sold it. They go to the seller, and the seller signs over the rights, gives the wholesaler power of attorney, and gives the seller the right to sign. And the wholesaler will not let you talk to the seller. And this last one, I was like, "Look, I can't do it if I can't." He goes, "Well, you should be able to use my forms and blah, blah, blah." No, I can't. If the seller doesn't know that but see, then who are you representing? And I felt dirty after the last one I did because, they did it at a certain closing agency that did a blind closing where they didn't show the fees to the seller. He called me up a week later and said, "Why did my house sell for this? Why does it say it closed for this much?" Because he didn't even know, even after the paper signed. And what they did was they put the buyer on the seller's side and the seller on the buyer's side. And that's how they got the paperwork through. It was a cash deal. Anytime you have to lie to get something done, anytime you have to do something, put somebody in the wrong column,
it shouldn't be done.
I don't want to be part of it.
Nope.
I don't want to be part of it.
Nope.
What about the Wildcats?
They're so much fun to watch this year.
Yeah?
They're so much fun.
I say that because I know you're a Wildcat fan.
And you don't even know what sport they play. Right? Do you know what basketball is? Do you know
I
what
do.
shape of basketball is?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I do. In fact, when I moved here, I still have it. I could sign it over to you. A fan page. I made a fan page because I went to watch the World Series of Baseball, and I was at a sports bar, and they didn't have the World Series on, but they had the blue and white game, or the whatever they call it, the scrimmage game. They didn't have the World Series on the TV, and I was like, "What?" And so I immediately started a Kentucky fan page. It was really interesting how that whole thing worked and how the fans are. Is really what I learned from it.
Yeah.
But you're a fan.
Yeah.
And are you a fan this year?
Twice. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually a supporter of Cal.
You are?
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
Okay.
So, I think he's a phenomenal leader. I think there's a lot we can learn from him, right?
Yeah.
So I heard an interview with him the other day, and they were giving him a hard time about starting lineups.
Right.
And he literally said, and it was an amazing answer to me, because he said, they're like, "Why are you not starting these, your best five, basically?" And he said, "I have to keep everyone engaged." Right? And he was like, "They play the most minutes, but these guys start." Right? I'm keeping them engaged. If I switch that, they're not going to come off the bench with the same energy that these guys come off the bench with. And they're fine coming off the bench.
Yeah.
They're getting the most minutes of anybody.
Right.
He told me it's true leadership.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's not just being narrow-minded focused. He's trying to keep the entire team engaged, and that's why they're so close.
Yeah.
Right? This team, from every indication I can find, everything I hear, and like, win or lose, they should win more games. We always think that, right? But they seem to really like each other, right? And they're so much fun to watch. They're high offense. They're running the gun and doing all this stuff, and it's like they're frustrating as all get out because they can't. You and I could score on them, okay? and you probably haven't picked up a basketball
I haven't.
since you were 7. So, like, you still would have a chance, right? Like, they just can't play defense anywhere near the level we're used to, right? But it was like, just listening to him talk about that reassured everything. I'm like, because he's looking at how do I keep them all? He's like, because there's games I need these guys.
Yeah.
Right? Like, those guys get in foul trouble. And if they're not engaged, we're screwed.
I can't imagine the, like, the hate that he takes on. Like, it's part of the reason why I don't really get into it. I mean, whether it's free throws or defense or whatever the bitch is, like, it's always the same things. And it has been since I moved to Lexington.
I mean, I grew up in Kentucky, right? Like, I mean, I can tell you where I was for the Leitner shot. I can tell you where I was for the big football games. I was on the field for the Bluegrass Miracle. Like, I've been involved with UK sports my entire life. And there was a point in my life where I literally realized I care way too much about this, right? And because my mom told my nephews, keep it down so Nick can watch the game. And they were decorating the Christmas tree.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, which one's more important here? Me watching some random game on a Saturday?
Yeah.
Or
the Christmas tree?
Yeah. And I remember, I was 20-some years old, and I remember going, this is a problem, right? And so it's just, I love UK sports. I've had season tickets for as long as I can remember, right? I've been very blessed to get to go and attend and be part of a lot of this stuff. But it's still just a game.
Yeah.
Do you know why I have season tickets? Why I've had them for so many years?
No.
It forces me to turn off the phone for 2 hours.
Oh.
And engage with somebody.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? So it's like, I love going and watching them. I can do that at home.
Yeah.
But going to the game, I can call you up. We can go.
Yeah.
And we have to have a conversation or it's real awkward. Right?
Yeah, right.
And it was like, for the most part, well, up until just recent, your phone didn't even work in there, right? So it was even better. But it was like, for the most part, I don't have to work. I can respond to people. Hey, I'm at the game. And guess what? In Kentucky, one of the beautiful parts of this, when you tell somebody you're at the game,
like they're
like, go Cats, call me afterwards, right? They don't get upset.
That's true. It's true.
Now, when you get some California people or other people calling you, they're like,
what
info? And I'm like, go online.
That's funny. So, Ari, he's a fan?
Ari is a fan. He loves basketball. Of course, a lot of his backstory within health and all this stuff, but from a very early age, he was obsessed with the ball. I mean,
I think you've told me that before. Yeah, right.
And I'll never forget. I mean, when all the doctors said he wasn't going to be able to do any of this kind of stuff because of the brain injury and these things, like, I would take a ball and I would throw it to him like that. And he would literally stop it and he'd throw it back the same way.
How old?
And, I'm talking 6-8 months. I mean, months.
Really?
Right? Yeah. And everybody was like, he's not able to do it. I'm like, no, this is consistent. I can do it over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I just kept noticing. And the early years were phenomenal. People used to go, I've got a video I can show you where he was a year and a half, maybe 2. And he was about 18, 20 feet away and took a ball and just slung it and made it into his little Fisher-Price.
Really?
Right? And it was like,
I think I've seen the video.
He's been able to do that stuff his entire life. Right?
Really?
So basketball, for some reason, was one he kind of really watched and did. But like soccer, if it's sports,
all sports,
the kid can do it. Like, he's more athletic than I am, and he's 6. Right?
That's the other piece of it that gets me too about being a sports fan is like when the team loses. I don't really like that. That's been. I grew up watching the Lions. Like they lost every single game, so it was okay.
But it's one of those. I heard somebody talk about loss, a few months ago, and it was like, and I even shared. I had a couple of funerals and different things I went to, and it was like, everybody views grief, which losing a game is just a form of grief.
Yeah.
Right? Just as losing a person, it was like, it's just not as severe. But it was like, if you grieve at all, it's because you cared. Right?
Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Like, the reason we care that we lost is because we wanted to win.
Yeah.
Right? Like, can you imagine being a fan of a team that you didn't care if they won or not?
Yeah. Right.
Losing's easy, but winning's not even fun.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny you say that because it's like being a dad, because, we're both going through this process, right? He's had some challenges, and it's like, everything is dealing with your emotions, like it's dealing with, that's one of the things we've been challenged with is pinches, right? He pinches, like he gets sent home from school. Yesterday, he pinched somebody and went up to the teacher and said, "You can call my mom now." Like, tell me that's not a conditioned response. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so now
I can go home.
He says out loud what he was doing. Like, we're trying to figure out why we can't get him to stop doing it. But he's been going to an occupational therapist, and like, now if I say to him, like we talk about emotions and feelings all the time. I think that was one thing that was missed when I was a kid. We were just talking about how I've raised my voice, but like how you deal with your emotions and how you deal with things is like a big deal. So it's funny you say that about the sports and how you make that correlation.
Well, it's funny you bring that up in that aspect because we literally had a doctor's appointment and we're looking at a behavioral psychologist and trying to find because it's helping him because he's got the brain injury and being able to control emotions.
Yeah.
And he gets obsessive on different things, right? And so one of the things we've been working on real hard is not raising our voice, not yelling.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm the adult. I am 6-7 times bigger than him. Like I don't need to be loud
right.
to be impactful, right? And what am I teaching him when I'm yelling, right? Is to yell.
Yeah.
And it's like yelling wins. I'm like, no, that's not what wins, right? So it's like trying to control those things but making the little adjustments. And it's true whether it's business, family, all that. Like you're really good at making adjustments in your business to make it more right.
Yeah.
You got to take that same approach with parenting, right? Like, so this morning I woke up 4 minutes earlier, 4 minutes, so that I could go in there and just say, all right, buddy, we got just a few minutes, just to make sure we're not being rushed to get ready, right? Just an extra 4 minutes, because if I can give him 3 to 5 minutes to wake up before I make him get out of bed, totally different kid.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like this morning was as smooth as maybe we've ever had. But it was me.
It was you making no.
Right? It was me because I was like, I gave him a little more grace. I was a little more patient.
Yeah.
When he got to the hallway and he's like, I'm sleepy, and he's sitting in the hallway, I didn't yell, get up, get in there, brush your teeth. I was just like, I know, I'm sleepy too, buddy. And it's like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, let's hurry up and get ready, and then you can take a nap on the couch before you get on the bus. Like, just a different
How old
approach.
is he?
6.
Okay.
Right? So he's in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so it's just that mentality of looking at what can you change?
Yeah.
Micro changes for, huge.
It's amazing have it like one thing, business, right? Like I've always cared about my business and the people that work with me. But it's a whole different dynamic actually caring about other humans. Like, I mean, caring about other humans in the sense that like you're because I almost feel that same way about the people I work with. Like I feel responsible for them, but it's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother responsibility. It's a whole nother. It's really cool.
Well, it's because I think as a team leader, typically the word that gets thrown around is family, right?
Yeah.
And I do. I think of my team as family. Right?
Yeah.
Like I see my team way more than I see most of my family.
Right.
And it was like if they were in a pinch or they do whatever, like I would do just pretty much anything I would do for my family, I would do for them. But when it's your kid, when it's your spouse, like you get that religious love. You get you start to understand what Jesus actually cared and did. Right?
Yeah, the conditional thing, but I had one thing I noticed in the business that a mistake. Well, it's not a mistake because I feel like I've earned it. Like I've been going to the lake every weekend, right? Mm-hmm. Then when it's warm out, I leave at noon on Sunday, and a lot of times I leave on noon or on Friday. I leave at noon on Friday. Well, so 1 week I don't leave at noon, and the office is empty. Like when I leave at noon, like I walk out the door and like the whole office leaves. Like that's the same thing. It's like, so am I gonna start working on the weekends again and start working on Fridays like all day? I mean, I do get here at 5:30, 6 a.m. Like before anybody's thinking about getting up. I've already got 8 hours in, But it's all the same stuff, man. You got to change. If you want anybody else to change, you got to change. Like that 4-minute thing. What is the best strategy for a new agent to get their first client?
Find someone who cares about their success as a mentor.
Love that. What can an agent do to improve their online marketing and social media presence?
Or be consistent. Most people never start, right? I mean, we know that on any aspect of it, whether it's losing weight or doing anything else, but is just start somewhere, and just keep growing it. I mean, it's like you and I have extensive Google experience, right?
Yeah.
And like we didn't start here. We started a decade ago,
Yeah.
right? And it was like, you just got to start
Yeah.
and just go.
If you focus on one form of prospecting, if you only focused on one form of prospecting, what would it be?
If I only focused on one, it'd be sphere and past clients.
Where did you learn to negotiate?
That's a great question. I mean, I love the book, Never Split the Difference. Everybody loves Chris Voss. I mean,
Yeah, that's a really good book.
right? But, I mean, I took his master class. My team took his master class, all that stuff, right? It was a lot of fun.
I got a funny story about that.
Yeah. But I only have a minute, so keep quiet. So I think it's somewhat engineering, just the engineering mindset of reading and doing. I think that's the one that makes me different.
So when you say engineering, what do you mean, like the math part of it, or
Just the analytical part of
Yeah.
it, analyzing situations and weak points and that kind of stuff in a system. So I used to do a lot of testing, test equipment and that kind of stuff. So it was like, from a test equipment, I'm always looking for the weak spot.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're negotiating, you're looking for strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we maximize the strengths and minimize our weaknesses?
How do you manage your time effectively?
I don't. I'm so horrible about it. Checklist. I'm a checklist guy. It's like between our CRM. I used to even use like just the checklist on my phone, the Apple phone thing. But for most of it, it's my calendar and it's my CRM. I mean, I put personal stuff in my CRM.
What are some common pitfalls agents should avoid?
Common pitfalls. I would say paying attention to social media, because a lot of people, I said I want to be like the top teams, right? And that's by top teams being profitable teams, the people I want to be like, right?
Yeah.
I want to mimic them or do things like them.
Right.
That work and live in the same guidance as I do, right? Like I have a biblical approach to our business and do it, so I want to mimic those people. But you can get online and watch people talk, and then you actually investigate numbers,
Yeah.
and it looks a lot different.
If it would just put their production by their head, like when they give advice, yeah. What is the profile of an agent who should join a team?
Anyone that's not been in the business for 3 years, the number one thing. After that, I think it's someone who likes to focus on relationships over marketing.
Yeah.
I spoke to a friend and he made the comment of the number one flaw he saw. If you get your license today, you would be better off finding someone that's really good at closing and referring all of your deals to them for the first year, and just learning from them and learning scripting of how to prospect.
Yeah.
Then you would actually go out and do it.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, there's a version of, it's a version of a team.
Yeah.
There, right.
I think about that from when I started. If I had the ability to join a team, if there was one that was even an option when I started, and it wasn't that. I mean, what are some reasons agents don't join teams?
I think splits are always the biggest thing. People, my wife even struggled with when we were starting it. Ben Kinney is literally talked her into letting me have a team, right? Because she was like, "You're giving up half of every deal. You're giving up, all this stuff," and it's about what's most important to you, money. Like if that's the only thing you really care about, then you don't need to be on a team, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to leverage and be able to do more time, be able to focus on the things you enjoy doing that, then it's a no-brainer, right? And it's like, and not to say, I know a lot of people that are on teams that make more money than they ever would off of.
Yeah.
But if your focus is not about getting help and doing it, and it's like all you are looking at is that next check, then you're never going to appreciate what you get.
What do potential buyers and sellers look for in an agent?
Knowledge, trust. I think trust is by far the number one thing. People, if they don't trust you, then it's not going to end well, right?
Yeah.
But it goes back to kind of what we were talking about earlier is you have to know more than they do, right? About the process, about the, you may not know more about the neighborhood, but do you know more about how to market or do those things? And you've got to show benefits to them.
What technology does an agent need?
I mean, a phone would be the first one. That's a very slippery slope. I mean, you could run a business off a Google spreadsheet, if you really want to, right? It's just how good do you know how to use spreadsheets?
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything you have to have. I know a lot of people have made a lot of money in real estate, and they barely know how to use their phone.
Right.
So I don't think there's a requirement for anything. I think it's what makes you more efficient.
Yeah.
Right? And if having extra technology makes you inefficient, then you need to get rid of it. And I've been there a lot.
What are some best practices for staying in contact with your past clients?
Talking to them, whether it be, I realized probably 8 or 10 years ago that I was a bad friend, right? I'm the type of guy that if you told me you were in the hospital, I would drop what I'm doing, get whatever you need to eat, bring it to you, sit with you, hang out, right? And I realized that's the kind of real estate agent I was. When you need me, I will go all out and I will take care of you.
Okay.
But when you don't need me,
yeah,
you probably won't hear from me, right?
Right.
And I'm like, what a crappy friend.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, I've got to do better. So I literally put in my CRM friends, right? Which they may or may not realize this, and then I have reminders. And it just says call, text, or Facebook message.
Yeah.
Right? Just check in on people, right? And I mean, I try to do a few every single day of, hey, what's going on? This and that. And when I first started doing it, a lot of people don't even like this. They're like, oh, I wouldn't do that. And I'm like, well, that's what I did. I was just honest. It's like, Bob, it's been 6 years since you've bought a house from me, and I haven't followed up once. And I'm sorry. I just feel like I was a crappy agent, and I was like, I'm trying to be better. I don't need anything from you. I just wanted to see how you're doing.
That's really good.
Right? And it was like 7, 8 years later, a lot of our business are from those conversations.
What are the first systems an agent looking to grow should put in place?
You have to automate things, right, as much as you can. There's a lot of different ways to do that, whether it be using the MLSs, auto prospectors, that's technology, right? And I don't know to what depth, we're talking about here, but, from that to whether it be a VA or an in-person assistant, anything to help make you more efficient and to automate stuff. And I think what kind of business you have dictates that, right? Like if I have, I just like to host gatherings for my sphere or whatever. I know there's people that do wonderful with that.
Yeah.
Then how do you automate that? How do you do those? So that person, I would tell you, figure out how to do your guest list better, right? How to do the invites better. Well, that's not something that I'm ever going to use, right? Because we do stuff differently. So
why are some agents thriving right now?
Trying harder? Well, I don't think it comes down to just trying harder. I think it's the mentality, the mindset of I'm gonna win, right? And so I mean, I think it's really it's a mindset backed up with actions.
What do you say to haters?
What can I do for you?
That's fine,
right? And I'm just like, I don't have hate to you. If you hate me, well, what can I do for you? And that's, my faith is very important to me. And I think Jesus wants me to help people, right?
Yeah.
And do it on an honest way and do it in that aspect. And if somebody's got a problem with me, I mean, honestly, one thing a lot of people don't know is last year, I made it the year of grievances. I'm asked for forgiveness for anything that I even maybe have been perceived to have done wrong, whether I did it or not. And, because my goal is never to harm anyone.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't, right? I do a lot of dumb stuff in life.
Right.
So it's I may come across bad, I may have a bad day, insult you, do whatever. So it's I just kind of wiped a lot of that out. And some of my family knows this. I've got a philosophy of, if you can live more than 30 days with being upset with me, it's now on you, not on me.
That's
right?
really good.
You air it out to me in the first 30 days and we'll work through it. But if you can hold it in for over 30 days, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Like if it's a big deal, we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, I literally had a nephew that messaged me. He's like, hey, I know you said this, so I just want you to know this hurt my feelings. And I'm like, great.
I got some people I need to share that with. I noticed it with people that have me blocked on Facebook. When someone tries to like tag somebody, or when I see somebody and they have me blocked, like what did I do to block me? Like unfollow me, unfriend me, but you've blocked me. Like there has to be something there. I just can't, I don't know how many, can't even think of people that I've blocked. I've unfriended a lot of people.
Yeah. Unfollow.
It's usually politics. It unfollows the easiest one.
Yeah.
Unfriend, you kind of want them to see it,
Yeah.
but then block, there's like something underlined. There's something else going on. What should an agent consider before starting a team?
Why are you doing it? I think is the biggest thing. I've had a lot of people say that that's the go, and I'm like, well, what? Why? Like what? Because there's a lot more responsibility. In the first, I don't know. I mean, unless you just hit the ground and really hit running, I'm going to tell you the first 5 years you're going to make less money, right? Like it takes a while to build. You're building a business,
Yeah.
right? And if you're trying to build a business and that's your goal, and you want something that's 10 to 15 years, but you have to be prepared. I mean, we've ran a pretty good team, and I've lost money a couple of times in the last decade, right? So it was like,
Yeah.
it's not always, what do people make it up to be? Now, we also probably market more than just about anybody too, right?
Yeah. That question, I don't know how relevant it is after like now, who wants to start a real estate team?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think a couple of years, 3 or 4 years ago, it was like a trend. Everybody called themselves a team or was starting a team.
Well,
And now,
that was a pet peeve of mine too. It's just people calling themselves a team when they were the only licensed person.
yeah.
Like a team should have to have more than one license.
Yeah. I think that the value that a team gives out too, there's a lot of teams that give teams a bad name,
Well, I mean, it's one thing.
There's always got to be
I take pride in, our team and what I've tried to do with it, right?
Yeah.
And I do think we're different than anybody that I know of. Like, I think I've done a good job of making people care about their team members,
Yeah.
right? And covering for their team members and helping their team members.
Yeah.
And even celebrating their successes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not solely by me. A lot of my team members have come up with little traditions and things that we've done that make that more possible.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people ask me, why do you have a team? Like, I'd make more money if I just focused on my sphere and didn't do anything else, right? Like I would.
Yeah.
And I like being around people, and I like lifting people up. I like trying to help people.
Yeah.
And, I hate paperwork, so it's like I get to leverage and focus on the things I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, money's not my objective.
Can't stop thinking about that 30 days. If we have a problem more than 30 days, it's your problem.
I mean, because it's true, right? Like,
it is.
If it keeps me up at night for a week, I'm going to deal with it.
Right.
But if I did something to you and 3 months later you're like, when you were over here and I'm like, no,
yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know it was a problem. And you sat on it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Is it really a problem?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, there's always, but I don't, and that's something you got to be careful. You can't just implement that and not tell people, because then that's not necessarily fair either. But I give people one shot and I'm say, all right, moving forward, you got 30 days.
Yeah.
Because if you can deal with it for 30 days, it's probably not as big a deal as it felt.
Yeah.
And in turn, I've tried to do that myself, right? If you did something to me and it really bothered me and it's been 6 months, I should probably get over it.
I think one of the things that I've learned over the past, it's since I've had a son, right?
You're a different person.
Is in the past, when it came to my family, I always had time for my family, even though they live in a different state. There was never something that I didn't have time for. And I think that, and they had families. My sisters had families. So there was times they didn't have time to deal with things. And it always frustrated me, right? And then now I understand, like sometimes you just don't have the bandwidth to deal with things, right?
Well, I mean, I've got my phone quits ringing after a certain hour.
Yeah.
Right? And it's because it's his bedtime, and I'm not going to be up walking through the house talking on the phone, keeping him up. It's
Yeah.
time for him to go to bed. Like, and unless I'm doing a deal or something, do we really need to talk at 9:30? Like,
No.
there's probably not. Like, text me, we'll deal with it, dress up,
Right.
move on. And so, I mean, you do start to put in those boundaries,
Yeah.
and just say, I care. One of my favorite lines, and I'm sure you've heard it, is, in 30 years, the only people that are going to remember you worked late is your spouse and your child.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like, that's it. Like, your boss isn't going to remember.
Yeah.
Man, Bob stayed till 4 o'clock, every Saturday. And like,
Yeah.
No, they're not. So it was like, now that's not an excuse not to work,
Right.
right? Because I still have to provide for them. But it also makes me, every day at 4:30, look and go, is this something I really need to do? And if so, what am I missing out on?
Right.
What's my opportunity cost? Or
Yeah.
What am I trading? And like, the reason I have to leave today, I was telling you about.
Yeah.
He's got a school walkthrough thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to pick him up. We're going to the school
Yeah.
so that he can show me what he's been doing for the last 3 months. Right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, and if it was just something else, I would have just rescheduled it. I
Yeah.
can't reschedule him, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, man, I appreciate you coming in. I know you got to leave here soon. You got to go take care of your son. And hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah.
And always appreciate time with you.